Two of the best-selling crossovers on sale right now is, of course, the Mazda CX-50, and then you have the Honda CR-V. I've reviewed both of these in person, and in the end of this video, I'm going to let you know which one I would personally buy if I was in the market for one of these today. And we're also going to talk about the spec and tech. Both of them for 2025 come as hybrid versions as well. They're pretty similar, but there are also some big differences: fuel economy, powertrain, and so on. Before we jump in and talk about this design of both of these cars, that is what we're going to focus on in this video. Let's check out the spec and tech for both of these, starting with the Honda CX-50 here from this article from Car and Driver. I'm going to link it down below in the description. So, optional 256 horsepower turbocharged four-cylinder provide driving thrills that are rare in the compact crossover class, and I totally agree with that. This is by far one of the best handling and most fun crossover SUV that you can buy today in this compact segment. I was surprised to see how fun this was to drive, and I think that is something that Mazda is doing very well across the entire lineup. The CX-90, CX-70, even the CX-30, and of course the Miata is great cars to drive. And all models come with all-wheel drive as standard, and even if you choose the base 187 horsepower non-turbo four-cylinder, which is not the one I would go with, I would definitely go with the turbo 256 horsepower. So for 2025, they're dropping the previous standard 8.8-inch infotainment display and giving all models the larger 10.3-inch unit. Still, it's bigger, but it's not too big. It doesn't take up some crazy space in the interior. It still feels very well integrated in the dashboard. Amazon Alexa voice assistant is now standard across the lineup as well. Several enhancements has been made to the CX-50's driving assistance tech. And you also have wireless charging pad, of course, which previously was limited to the top Premium Plus, is now available as standard on all but the base Select trim level. You also have, as I said, a new CX-50 hybrid for 2025. The pricing ranges from $31,720 up to $44,720, of course, depending on the trim. Personally, I think I agree with Car and Driver here. I would probably go with this Turbo Meridian Edition, or maybe splurge, because it's only $2,000 difference here for the top trim, which is the Turbo Premium Plus. Now, when it comes to the engine transmission, you do have a 2.5-liter four-cylinder. Of course, go with the turbocharged engine. The 187 horsepower for the base model doesn't give you that thrill that I'm looking for in a Mazda. So go for the turbo. You have a 6-speed automatic as standard, and all-wheel drive is standard as well. And with the hybrid here for 2025, they borrow the drivetrain, the powertrain from the Toyota RAV4 hybrid. Now, looking at the fuel economy, you get 24 city, 30 highway for the non-turbo. The turbo goes up to 29 highway, which is not bad at all. And all models come with a tilt and telescoping steering wheel, push-button start, and partially digital gauge cluster. Some might say that that is a bad thing. We want to have the full digital gauge cluster, but honestly, when you sit in a brand new Mazda CX-50 specifically, and you have this analog gauge cluster, I just think it feels so refreshing to still have some physical pieces inside of the dash that are actually well integrated as well. So looking at the CR-V here for 2025 is equipped with front or all-wheel drive, and you only get one powertrain, and that is the 190 horsepower turbocharged engine, unless you go with a hybrid, which goes up to 204 horsepower, still less than to the Mazda's power that you have there. And they say that the CR-V is better all-rounder for its pleasant driving dynamics. And the CR-V to me is sort of like the crossover or compact SUV that you buy if you just want to have a good deal, but you don't really care about the driving dynamics, because it's not a specifically fun car to drive, but the price is lower, and you also get better fuel economy. And they say it's also this solid build quality, of course, Honda build quality here, and just the right balance of infotainment knobs and screens. So thankfully, they still have a bunch of knobs and screen inside of the CR-V. Now for 2025, there really aren't a lot of changes to the CR-V, which is a good thing because it's still a very good vehicle. And the pricing starts $31,450 going up to just $36,000 $350. Remember, the Turbo Premium Plus of the CX-50 is about $44,500. So this is a lot cheaper than that, almost $10,000 cheaper. The CR-V LX, EX, and EXL are all gas-only models. Then you have the Sport L, Sport Touring models come exclusively with leather upholstery, a power tailgate, and a larger touchscreen, and some more extra features. Under the hood, you do have the standard, as I said, 190 horsepower turbo, 1.5 liter four-cylinder. It pairs it with a CVT, and compare that to the CX-50, which has a 6-speed automatic. This feels like it's struggling when you're stepping on it, and it also sounds a little bit like a scooter when you're stepping on it. It's like every CVT gearbox, and most models are fitted with a set of 18-inch wheels. 0 to 60 takes about 8.1 seconds, so it's not the quickest small little crossover out there, and the transmission also causes the engine to drone noisily under hard acceleration, like I just said. So estimated fuel economy here, 28 city, 34 highway, not bad at all. You do have a partially digital cluster in the CR-V, similar to what you have in the CX-50 as well, with the analog speedometer and a 7-inch display. For the touchscreen, you can either have in the base model, you have 7-inch touchscreen, or if you step it up a little bit, you get the 9-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is something that I would definitely want to have and spend some more money on, because I don't like to have to plug in my phone every time I want to have Apple CarPlay. You also have wireless phone charging here, and the limited warranty, 36,000 miles and 60,000 miles for the powertrain warranty, which is exactly the same like we have on the Mazda CX-50. Now, let's jump into the fun stuff here and check this out. Both of these, I think both of them have grown a lot when it comes to the design compared to the previous generations of these two cars. The CX-50 here, let's start with that one. I love the color that we have here. Also, huge fan of these wheels. These are the wheels that you need to get. You can also get them with these wheels if you're more of an, like, maybe you take it more on trails or off-roading, then maybe you want to go with a little bit more rubber and smaller wheel size, but I prefer the look 100% of these wheels that we have here. What I love about the design of Mazda these days is so clean. And comparing this to the CX-30, this has a much more upright and stately front end. The nose up top here sticks out very far. So if you look at this from a side view, you have the front end being almost a vertical line, and I love that about this design. I also like the chamfer that we have going on underneath here. These are actually functional air slots in the front end. I like how it wraps into the plastic piece, and beautiful indicator light down here as well that has this Mazda pulsating light to it. Looks like you have sort of a skid plate down here with the radar integrated in the center, and you have these beautiful LED daytime run lights inside of the headlights as well. Overall, just a stunning looking design, and this is one of my favorite crossover designs at the moment when it comes to the design, and also when it comes to the driving characteristics like we talked about before. Now, looking at the CR-V here, fantastic refresh by Honda. This looks like a much more upscale design than the previous generation. Love the simple DRLs that we have here inside of the headlight unit, and we also have a similar chamfer that we have on the Mazda as well, and we also have this intake being functional. Again, very, very similar functionality when it comes to the layout and the positioning of the key features in the front end. The only thing that I would like to change here are these pieces in the lower section. These squared off graphics in the lower section just does not make sense to me. I want to remove them all together and just have this be completely open and just blacked out. I do like the mesh that we have in the grille, looking very rugged, and it's a very big, like the sizing of the holes in the grille are huge. You can see that the entire grille here is completely functional. Everything is completely open as well. And this has the same stately design that we have in the CX-50. Very upright design. And I do like that we have this starting point, this line up top, to have all the graphics starting underneath this line right here. Now, looking at the side view, the thing I like about the CX-50 is here you can see this stately look. As I said, if you look at this from a side view, you would see how vertical the front end is. And it is just a straight line up here. The nose goes all the top part of the hood goes all the way to the very far front end of the design. I like how the headlights are cut out from the bodywork itself. And we have this cut for the functional air vent right here as well. I do like this squared off fenders that we have compared to, for example, the CX-30, which I do believe has rounded fenders, and this looks way more rugged and a lot more off-roady. And another detail that I love about this design are these fenders, or these shelves that we have both in the front right here and also in the rear end. This creates a lot of muscle, and when you look at this from a 3/4 rear view, which you're going to look in a minute, it just looks properly planted on the ground. The only thing I would like to change in this view is this piece. I'm not sure what happened here for the designers of Mazda. They just decided to splash in one single piece of small, a tiny chrome piece in this area, and I don't really understand what that is doing there. But you can see we have the black plastic going all around the lower section to protect this car when you decide to take it on the trail. So looking at the CR-V here, again, just a fantastic design, still very stately in the front end with a very upright design. The hood sticks out straight forward and then has a tiny dip in the very far end. You have the same sort of cutout for the headlights here that we have in the Mazda. But what I like here is that we have a clear, defined, solid shoulder line. Look at this, going from the very corner of the headlight, just like I want to see. And if we stretch this out, you can see that it goes straight in to the corner of the taillight here. These taillights, some people might confuse this for a Volvo, and I can totally see that with these type of taillights that we have here. I like that the taillight graphics has these designs to sort of an arrow, so it shoots out the shoulder line from the taillight. So we have a connection from the graphic features into the bodywork of the car, which I think looks very, very cool. You can see that the trim around the greenhouse in this case seems to be maybe not chrome, but it is silver. I would like to have this be blacked out because you can see wheels are black, the black plastic here, door handles are painted in body color, and the side mirrors are also black, so why not just black out the trim around the greenhouse there as well. Now looking at the 3/4 rear view here, this is by far my favorite view for the CX-50 because we have, again, this muscle up top just looking beautiful. I also like the design, almost industrial looking design for the taillight unit here. It looks super clean. Same pulsating indicator light in here. Sky Active Turbo, this being the turbo version, all-wheel drive, of course. Maybe we could hide the wiper underneath the spoiler up top, but since this is not a high-end luxury car, I understand why they saved a little bit of money on that. Also love that we have dual symmetrical pipes on both sides here, looking fantastic. The thing that doesn't make sense in the rear end from a functional standpoint, but graphically it's great, are these air slots or outtakes right here. These are not functional like we had in the front end right here. Instead, these are just there for styling purposes. But what they do is they create, in addition to this muscle that we have going on up top here, this just makes it feel much wider than what it is, and a lot wider than the CR-V, for example. So checking out the CR-V here, you can see just how much wider the Mazda looks because of the muscle and also the graphic, the play around with graphic features. And these also bring the corners down to the ground and plants this car properly onto the surface. Now looking at the CR-V here, still a very nice looking design. We have this line at the lower section creating a nice housing for the top half of the graphics, and then we have these Volvo taillights, which I don't really think they look like Volvo taillights. I can sort of see why some people might confuse this for a Volvo, but this sticks out way farther in this area into the center than a Volvo. Maybe not the latest model, maybe not the XC60, but still, internal pieces of the taillight look way different from the Volvo. And one thing I noticed when I had this for a week is just the badging. How many different types of badging we have here. We have Sport in dark gray, Touring, lasered out from a silver piece, and then we have Silver CR-V Hybrid, and we have a sticker up here that says all-wheel drive. That is not a badge, it's just a sticker on the glass. So they didn't put all-wheel drive down here or anything like that. Instead, they just decided to play around with some stickers. Do like the lower section because this is something we rarely see in modern cars, a properly defined bumper in the lower section in addition to the dual exhaust pipes down here, even though this left one is actually covered up. So it's totally fake and you only have one functional air exhaust pipe on the CR-V. Now looking at the interiors here, this is probably where I made my final decision which one of these I would buy, because it's going to be the Mazda. I'm just going to say it right now, because the Mazda, when it comes to the driving characteristics of the Mazda, first of all, it feels almost like a sports car to drive the CX-50. I'm amazed by how well this drives, and also the CX-70, which was a fantastic car. Now, looking at the interior, this is the layout. We have analog gauge cluster here. We have a small screen up here. This is the brand new 10.2, I do believe, inch infotainment screen. You can see that it doesn't feel like it's too big for the overall interior. You have heated and ventilated seats here as well, with the higher trim levels, charging pad in this area, and it's dark and it's cozy. And it's simplistic layout for the Mazda, and I love Mazda's interiors these days as well, because it feels like the car is wrapping around you, and you feel protected, and you feel like you're sitting inside of the car and not on top of it, which it feels like in many crossovers, because you're sitting so high up. Now, looking at the CR-V here, this refresh is still great, even though we still have the infotainment screen sitting a little bit less integrated, I would say, than in the Mazda over here. But I do love this. This is what I want to see. All the buttons and dials for the climate control settings. And this is something that you get still today in cheaper cars. It's sort of the normal range cars all have digital stuff. But if you go into the high-end luxury cars, hypercars, they still have the dials. And if you go to the very base cheaper cars, they also still have physical knobs and dials. But the middle section, middle range of price point of cars today, they all have everything being digital. You can see the gauge cluster here, still analog, but it's not as well beautifully integrated or designed like we have in the Mazda, in my opinion. I do love the steering wheel here, but this comes, as I said, with a CVT gearbox, which I've never driven a car with a CVT that feels exciting to drive. And this just does not feel like an exciting car to drive. This is one of these cars that you buy to take you from point A to point B. It looks good, but when it comes to the driving characteristics, not a huge fan of that. So in this case, personally, if I had to buy one of these cars today, it's pretty clear. I would go for, of course, the Mazda CX-50. Because when I reviewed that car, I said that this is probably the best compact SUV slash crossover, whatever they're called today, that I've ever reviewed, and I still stand by that. Similar to what the CX-70 is probably one of the best SUVs overall on sale today, along with the CX-90 if you do need the third row seats. And then you have the Miata. Mazda is just crushing it right now. And the Honda CR-V is a great car, great price point, but for enthusiasts, if you need to have a crossover, I would 100% go with the CX-50.